So let's think about how we can animate 3 lines of a hamburger menu into basically 2 crossing lines with a circle behind them. So of course there are many ways to do it, but to me it seems like an obvious way of doing it is basically to have the top and bottom line basically moving from parallel to each of them rotates so they create an X while the middle line just disappears. So that seems like an easy way to create this animation. And also the circle that we have in the background, maybe it can kind of like pop. So these lines basically rotate, also change their color from white to black, while the middle line disappears and we've got a circle that's basically popping out of the background. Let's go ahead and try to implement this. So right now we've got this nav menu button with a background color and round corners, but I'm actually going to undo that. I'm just going to remove the radius here and also remove the background white because I want to animate this circle, we're going to have to create it as a layer. So let's actually start with bringing in the lines of the menu and then we'll add the circle behind them. So inside of this nav menu button, let's add in a div and let's call this menu line. We can call this whatever, but let's say menu button line. And this line is basically, you can see it here, it's a 24 pixels. So let's set this to be a div that's 24 pixels, 24 pixels. And let's try 4 pixels height and a background color of white. And then we can see it here. I think it looks not bad. And also let's do a round corners of 10, I don't know. It looks like the corners are round here. So we've got one line in this div. Let's duplicate that 1, 2, 3. We've got 3 lines here, but they are fully, one next to each other, so they're all tied up. So for this nav menu button, let's turn this into flex. Let's center them, not one next to each other, one on top of each other, and let's add a little bit of a gap between them. This looks good. They're a little bit too thick, I think, to my liking. So maybe instead of 4 pixels, maybe let's turn this into 3 pixels, maybe 2 pixels. Let's stick to 3 for now. Okay, so we've got the 3 lines here, and let me see how that looks. Not bad, not bad. Okay, so we've got 3 lines here that, they are separate from each other, so I can animate them individually. That's great. Let's create the circle behind them. So let's add another div. Let's call this div, and let's call this menu button circle. And for this one, we want it to be behind, right? So let's set the position to absolute. Let's fill up the whole space. Let's give this just like a weird background color just so that we can see it right now. Yeah, I can see it, but it's above the lines. What happens if I set this to 0 or even -1? Okay, -1 is great. It sets them behind these lines. Let's go ahead and add 999 for corner radius. That's fantastic. Okay. Now this circle actually needs to be white. I just put it to gray because now we've got a white circle and also white lines. But that's okay because we're going to hide this right now and then we're going to animate it in. So under opacity, I'm just going to drop the opacity for now. And let's review the structure that we've got. So we've got 3 lines, right? They are stacked together by this flex with a little bit of a gap between them. And then we've got this menu button circle behind them. It's behind them because it's set to absolute position with a Z index of -1. So it's under them. And now it's time to just tackle the animation itself. So I'm going to select the nav menu button and under interaction, add a mouth click. Where is it? Mouth click. Fantastic. And let's start an animation. And I'm going to call this open menu. I guess we can call this open menu. Or maybe I'm wondering whether I want to have the open menu together in the same interaction with the hamburger, or perhaps I will create 2 separate interactions. So let's just tackle the hamburger now. So let's call this hamburger click 1, because the second click, we're going to have to create a reverse animation on the second click, right? So let's call this hamburger click 1. And then what do we want to happen? So first of all, let's select the first line and rotate it. So let's find rotation. And now I don't want this to affect all of the classes, right? Because all 3 lines have the same class. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm only targeting the selected element, and I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees. Okay, that looks good. I'm very likely also going to have to reposition it, but let's start with this. And let's select the second line and rotate as well. also just a selected element. Maybe this one, let's do -45. So let's see what we've got. Let's play this. First one animating, the second one animating. Well, obviously I want them to animate together, so I'm going to drag the second animation to happen together on top of the first one so they happen together. Now, yeah, the top one needs to go down a little bit and the bottom one needs to go up a little bit. So I'm going to select the first one here, and let's also add a move animation. And let's move it down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 pixels down. And let's select the second one. Let's move it together with this. Let's move it up maybe -8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Up. Sorry, I'm animating the class instead of just this object. Okay, yeah, now they look quite perfect, actually. Let's preview this. Okay, so now they're looking good. The second one is moving down because I forgot to change this to select element, which is why the middle line also moved. Okay, so we've got the nice rotation. We also want to hide the middle one. So I'm going to select the middle one and then give this an opacity. Again, just a selected element. Opacity 0. Also having together with them. Now we can play this. Okay, so now the 3 lines are turning into an X. We can, by the way, make this a little bit nicer if we change this from linear to something like, you know, out quad or something like this, which makes it kind of like moving fast and then slowing down. Let's change everything to out quad and see if we notice a change in the animation. Out quad, now let's preview it. Now you can see it's moving fast and then slowing down into place. So that's a little bit nicer animation that we've got here. Okay, so the X is happening. Oh, one more thing that needs to happen. They have to turn into black. Remember, here in the end position, they're also black. So what we can do is select one of them and also change the background color. Now, this one is okay to change the whole class because I do want all of them to change. So that's fine. Let's select black and now animate this. So now they're moving from white to black. All of them are changing side. Now it's hard to see them, but we're going to make the circle visible. So let's select the menu button circle. Let's choose its opacity and turn it to 100. Also with something like out quad happening together with them. Let's preview this. Okay, so this one happens actually quite fast. So maybe let's turn this into linear. And for some reason, it's kind of like jumping. But I also want this to animate from small to large. So let's do this. Let's set an initial state for this circle. Let's duplicate this and set an initial opacity. Set this as initial state at 0. And let's also select its scale. Initial scale of, let's say, 0. And then duplicate this and animate it into 1. Meaning back to its original size. And let's do something fun like bounce or something like this. So it bounces big. Boing, boing. Okay. So now it's scaling up. Maybe we change this to 1 instead of 0. So it takes a little bit longer. Okay. So now we've got the menu turning into X and the circle is growing and bouncing. That's actually quite a fun animation. Okay. So that looks great. Now we need to think about what happens when we click the second time. Basically, we need to reverse this animation. So when we're closing, it's going to go back into a hamburger menu. So under the interaction, we've got the first click. On first click, we've got hamburger click 1. And on second click, let's go ahead and start an animation. And let's duplicate this. So I'm just going to duplicate this hamburger click 2, exactly what I want. And let's preview this. And let's, first of all, we don't need initial state here, right? So let's delete these because we've just finished an animation. And let's see. This rotation from 45, let's bring it back to 0. This movement is going back to 0. This background color is going back from black to being white. The rotation is going back to 0. Movement going back to 0. Opacity of this menu, yeah, this is the middle line, goes back to 0, to 100. And then the circle is going back to 0. And the scale of the size of the circle also goes back to 0. Not with a bounce. Now we can just like move linearly, kind of like move back. Now, I can't seem to preview this because it's trying to preview the back animation from this. It doesn't know that we're going to animate this from an and state of the previous animation. So to see how this looks, I could actually have to go and save it, preview it here, click the first animation, works fine. And now the second click, fantastic. So first click works, second click basically reverse it back to its original position. All right, so we've created a custom hamburger animation And that works really great. Now let's start working on the full screen menu.